Hello and welcome to Learn Redis with Python and Django. I'm Xander and I'll be your guide throughout this course. Now this tutorial is part of a full course playlist available for free on YouTube. For a deeper, more structured learning experience, the complete course is also available on Udemy. You'll find all the links and resources in the video description. Now don't forget to subscribe to the channel for weekly promotions, exclusive discounts and Udemy course giveaways. In this tutorial, we'll explore how to use Redis strings as simple counters using increment and decrement commands. Now, this topic is important because it introduces a clean and efficient way to manage numeric values in Redis using string keys. Right, so a Redis counter is simply a string that holds an integer value. Even though Redis strings usually store text, Redis is smart enough to treat them as numbers when you need or use certain commands. So the two main commands used for this are INCR and DECR, so increase and decrease. So these let you increase and decrease the value stored at a key without needing to read the value, convert it, or write it back manually. Redis handles all of that internally. Now, another nice feature is that we can use these commands on a key that doesn't exist yet. Redis will create it and start at 0 before applying the change. So that means you don't need to worry about setting up the key first. Now, also, these operations are atomic, meaning they're safe to use even when multiple parts of your code might access or change the same counter at once. So Redis will make sure the changes happen in the correct order without overlap. So this really makes counters in Redis simple to use, flexible, and also helps reduce the amount of code you need to write to manage numeric values. Okay, so let's put this into action. Right, so we use the INCR to increase or create an increment. Now, here we simply just define the key, page views, and no value. So what's going to happen here is that when we run this, it's then going to return a 1. So this is the first increment. Of course, if we run this command again, it exists. The key exists now, so it would just simply increment the value to 2. Of course, if we need to decrease the value, we simply use the DECR command to decrease and define the key, and then we can return that back to 1. Of course, this is especially useful for things like tracking page views, likes, or any real-time metrics. Keep in mind that the value must be an integer, otherwise Redis will throw an error, and all of this happens atomically, making it safe to use even in high traffic applications. So let's just see that error in action. So here we go, we set page views to hello, and then we go ahead and we try to increase or increment that. So INCR page views. Now if we try and do that, there we go. So we see our first error. Error value is not an integer or out of range. So programmatically, what you might like to do is first of all use exists. So let's check to see if it exists. Of course, we return 1. It does exist. And then we can use type. So type allows us to return the data type that is currently stored in the string. So let's go ahead and run. And you can see here we have a string. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily help if we have a value in the string that we can't increment, but it does give us a way of first identifying whether we are working with a string. So if the type is anything other than a string, we should avoid using increase and decrease. And don't forget, we can also use get, and that could also be another method of returning a value and checking to see if it is a number that can be increased. Now we could, for example, create a small script to combine the check and the increment atomically. Right, so what we're looking at here is a Lua script. We're using eval to execute this Lua script in Redis. So this first part calls Redis type command on the key. We extract the actual type name, string, list, hash, etc. This ensures the key holds a string, which is necessary for incrementing a value. So we now use get to retrieve the key's value. We try to convert that value to a number. If it fails, it returns nil, meaning the string is not a number. This check ensures the string is numerically valid. If both checks pass, correct type and numeric value, we perform the increment. Else, if either check fails, we return a custom error as a string. So in this case, we currently have in page views, I think, a few words. Is it? Let's take a look. Page views. So at the moment we have hello. So we go ahead and return the error. So if we go back into our browser and just change this to, for example, 1, or let's just go for 200. Let's save that. So we just update the value here that's stored in the string manually. And then let's run this script again. So this time both should pass and we should increment the value. So now we return 201. Right, so last of all, we have increase by and decrease by to increase by a specific step or decrease by a custom decrement. Really simple to use, follows the same rules, very much like the increment command. So here we simply specify how many we want to increment by. So for example, let's go for 5. Now this doesn't exist, so it will get created and we start with 5. And then, of course, we can specify how much we want to decrease by. So we can take it down 2, for example. So that leaves us with 3. So these commands will help you adjust the counter by a specified amount instead of just 1.